to welcome you all here today. This is the one hearing, the one Bureau hearing in Virginia. We had hoped to have one closer to the coast, but that doesn't look like it's going to happen, so we are really happy that people made the trip from across Virginia to be here in Richmond today with us. We're here to protect our waters, the waters of the Atlantic on our Virginia coast, to dangerous oil and gas development. We're here to make our voices loud and clear that we do not think offshore drilling is good for Virginia. And we come from across the state with a lot of different perspectives and a lot of different interests that are a part of that position. And during this press conference, you're going to hear from a number of people expressing their own concerns: economic, military, environmental, quality of life, all of the different interests that bring us here today. So thank you for being a part of this, and it is my pleasure to introduce first Congressman Donald McKeon. Congressman McKeon represents the 4th Congressional District of Virginia and serves both on the House Armed Forces Committee and the House Committee on Natural Resources. His time in Congress representing Virginia is only part of his long service to the people, stretching back almost 2 decades in both the Congress and our own General Assembly. So welcome, Congressman McKeon.
Thank you. Karen, thank you for those kind words, and I just want to say how happy I am to be home. It's always good to be home, and how happy I am to be here with secretaries from the Northam administration. It doesn't have a good ring to it, but I'm especially honored to be here today alongside retired military, business, and environmental leaders to express Virginia's united opposition to offshore drilling. The Trump administration's decision to push for drilling in more than 90% of our nation's coastal waters, including off of the coast of our beautiful Commonwealth, poses serious dangers to our economy and our environment. As we learned from the Deepwater Horizon catastrophe, accidents can be unimaginatively destructive, devastating the marine environment, wrecking entire industries, and potentially affecting the health of local residents. In Virginia, a potential spill would have terrible consequences for coastal communities, not just the Atlantic coastline, but in and around the Chesapeake Bay. In our Commonwealth, coastal fisheries, tourism, and recreation support more than 91,000 jobs and almost $5 billion in GDP. A threat to those industries, it goes without saying, is a threat to all of Virginia. If a spill were big enough, and we have seen that they can be enormous, the economic consequences would ripple throughout the nation's economy, hurting millions of Americans who live many miles from the sea. And even without a spill, even if everything goes perfectly right, offshore drilling carries real consequences for Virginia. Drilling in many places is fundamentally incompatible with both the needs of the military and NASA. The Department of Defense has twice concluded that drilling off most of Virginia's coast would compromise the Navy's ability to effectively operate and train. Ignoring that conclusion would reduce military readiness and in turn compromise national security. NASA, meanwhile, says drilling rigs would be constraining to or eliminate operations at Wallops Island. These partners are hugely important to the economy and culture of Hampton Roads and the Eastern Shore, and they could move their assets elsewhere. To push them in that direction is simply foolish. We cannot and we must not risk the cornerstones of our communities in pursuit of dirty energy. Using that energy, by the way, would worsen climate change and, as a result, speed the kind of sea level rise that is already causing problems in coastal Virginia. But this administration has chosen to ignore the dangers. They are risking the long-term health and livelihood of hardworking families in the pursuit of short-term corporate profits. That is why Virginians are so adamantly opposed to offshore drilling. We oppose drilling. So does Governor Northam. So do local governments in Norfolk, Northampton, Virginia Beach, and more than 100 coastal communities up and down the eastern seaboard. Voices from the private sector, like Virginia's Restaurant, Lodging, and Travel Association, have also expressed concern. Virginians know that we cannot and must not risk our Commonwealth's natural beauty, fragile habitats, and irreplaceable species for the benefit of a few massive oil and gas companies. On behalf of our children, and on behalf of our children's children, who will inherit whatever kind of planet we choose to leave them, we are urging the Trump administration not to open the areas off of Virginia's coast to drilling. And we are sending them another message. If you don't listen, we will resist you every step of the way. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Congressman McKeon, and thank you for making the trip here today. As the Congressman said, we are very fortunate to have the support of the governor's office on this issue, back to his time in the Senate and as lieutenant governor and now as the governor. And we are fortunate to have two members of his staff here today to talk to you. Secretary Matt Strickler, the Secretary of Natural Resources, and also Secretary Carlos Hopkins, the Secretary of Veterans and Defense Affairs. So welcome, Matt, Secretary Strickler, and Secretary Hopkins. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon. And I want to echo a lot of what Congressman McKeon said with respect to our military. Obviously, as Secretary of Veterans and Defense Affairs, making sure that the Commonwealth maintains a solid relationship with our military facilities, our forces, our men and women in uniform is extremely important. As you all know, our Hampton Roads region, we have many, many military facilities, installations, and commands. And it's important that as a Commonwealth that prides itself on being the most military-friendly state in the nation, we make sure we provide our forces the most optimal training area we can. And as the governor has expressed his concern with offshore drilling and what it does to our environment and our military, I want to echo those concerns. We want to make sure that we don't negatively impact the ability of our forces to train in the most efficient and effective manner possible. And as I visit our facilities, as I've been doing all week this week in the Hampton Roads region, their abilities, their capabilities are incredible. From our Fleet Forces Command with our surface ships, our submarine ships, our ability to monitor electronic communications, with our special operations forces that work in the area, they need to be able to train so that when we send our men and women to fight, we know we're sending them, having given them the best opportunity to succeed. And so with that, I ask that the administration not open up Virginia's offshore to oil and gas leasing, because we want to make sure that we don't negatively impact our military. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Matt Strickler, Secretary of Natural Resources to Governor Northam. The governor's in Northern Virginia today, but on his behalf, I want to thank you all for being here, and special thanks go to Congressman McKeon for taking time out of his busy schedule to be with us today. 2 months ago, I was staffing the congressman on the House Natural Resources Committee, so some things have certainly changed recently. But one thing that has not changed is the fact that offshore drilling for oil and gas off Virginia's coast is a terrible idea. The Trump administration's leasing proposal is out of touch with Virginians. It ignores overwhelming bipartisan opposition and is oblivious to the transition to cleaner energy happening all around us. It's also a massive threat to our economy and our environment. We know that oil rigs and Navy target ranges don't mix. We know that tourism-related businesses want no part of oil mats and tar balls washing up on our beaches. And we know that aquaculture, recreational commercial fisheries, and the health of the Chesapeake Bay would all be put in jeopardy by an oil spill off Virginia. It is simply not worth the risk. That's why Governor Northam has asked Secretary Zinke to exempt Virginia from this plan. We want the same respect for our state and our unique and valuable coastal and ocean resources that he has shown by exempting Florida, and more recently signaling that he is willing to listen to California's concerns. The governor has also asked him to hold multiple public hearings on the plan in Tidewater, Virginia, instead of holding just this one hearing today, 100 miles from our coast. The least the Trump administration can do is to meet people where they live and hear firsthand why his plan is bad for Virginia. I don't know a single person who wants oil platforms anywhere near Virginia Beach or the Eastern Shore's barrier islands, much less only 3 miles offshore. So I can assure you we will use every tool at our disposal to ensure that no drilling occurs off Virginia's coast. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Strickler and Secretary Hopkins, and please pass our thank you on to the governor. We really do appreciate his support. The next person I get to introduce you to is Councilman Aron, who has really led the way in Virginia Beach and in the Hampton Roads area on municipal opposition to offshore drilling. So please welcome Councilman Aron.
Thank you, Karen. I was very pleased last summer to introduce a resolution to the Virginia Beach City Council to oppose offshore drilling and seismic testing, and I was very pleased that it passed unanimously. We had other cities in Hampton Roads that followed suit shortly thereafter, and then Governor McAuliffe did the exact same thing. So we really started, I thought, to get some momentum. The city of Virginia Beach, I think, has a long legacy in terms of our city government about being pro-business, and we've been pro-business on a lot of fronts, including tourism, which we've spent millions and millions of dollars in investing and reinvesting in that industry. And aquaculture, we are actually able now to eat the oysters that our first settlers ate for the first time in many, many years, which is an important part, not just of our economy, but of the legacy that is Virginia Beach. We were very concerned when this came up again, because one of our major industries is the military. In fact, it is our largest industry, and we certainly have done an awful lot in terms of fighting to maintain our assets that we currently have, and had that fight with Florida and not that long ago. And so to have a position now where Florida would have this perceived advantage that they would not have to work around oil rigs to perform their military exercises certainly adds a point to their ledger to be able to take away those military assets. And to the region, it's $1 billion a year in terms of economic impact, and something that would be felt not just in Virginia Beach, but throughout all of coastal Virginia. So I was pleased again to reintroduce a resolution that asked for the same protections that we asked for in the summer, but also to do the same thing that we'd done, that the President had offered to do for Florida. And so that also passed unanimously. And so on behalf of our mayor and the entire City Council of Virginia Beach, we are here to speak to BOEM and to let them know under no uncertain terms that it is not good for Virginia, and it is certainly not good for Virginia Beach. So thank you all for coming out.
Many of our speakers have referred to the importance of our military partners in Virginia, and we're very fortunate to have Rear Admiral Craig Quigley with us today. He's the Executive Director of the Hampton Roads Military and Federal Facilities Alliance. So welcome, Rear Admiral Craig Quigley.
Thank you, Karen. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am the executive director of a nonprofit that is composed of the political leadership of 13 cities and counties in Hampton Roads. The charter is very simple, despite the long name. It is to attract, retain, and grow federal facilities to the region. One of the reasons that Hampton Roads is so attractive to the military forces of the United States are the magnificent training ranges off the coast. Not just the Navy, but also the Air Force and the Marine Corps use them heavily every day. They are obliged to train in a realistic manner in order to carry out the missions that this nation sends them to do. And if they can't do that training off the coast of Virginia, they will go wherever they can in order to do so. And that will have a tremendous impact on life, on the effectiveness of those military forces and their families if they're obliged to do that training elsewhere. So there's many reasons to come at this, but where Harumpha is coming at it is from the training and operational effectiveness and the adverse effect. There is no upside. This is all downside. Thank you.
The military is certainly a very, very important employer in Hampton Roads and throughout Virginia, but so is tourism, and so are a lot of our small businesses. So I'm happy to introduce Laura Wood-Huber, who is a founding member of the Business Alliance to Protect the Atlantic Coast and a Virginia Beach business owner. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you all, and good afternoon. Thank you for making the trip here. My name is Laura Wood-Huber. I'm a co-owner of Croc's 19th Street Bistro, immediate past vice president of the Virginia Beach Restaurant Association, and also a founding member of the Business Alliance for Protecting the Atlantic Coast, also known as BAPAC. And really what that is a small group, a grassroots group of us, got together a couple years ago from all along the coast, a handful of us, and said we don't want drilling and our business voice need to be heard, and we went forward with that. Today we represent over 42,000 businesses from Florida to Maine and over 500,000 commercial fishing families. So my restaurant is steps away from the Virginia Beach Convention Center and also a few blocks from the Atlantic Ocean. And our business thrives because of the economic engine of tourism, which is thriving in Hampton Roads. Coastal tourism generates more than $4 billion in revenue, supporting tens of thousands of families like mine. The vitality of our business in coastal communities depends on the well-being of our beaches. The Trump administration's plan to drill off our coast is a significant risk to our local economy and the economy of the entire Commonwealth. That means it's a risk to all of us and our families and businesses. So we're here today to take a stand. Our hospitality industry in Virginia Beach will fight every attempt to open our beautiful coast to oil drilling. We'll fight every attempt to jeopardize the many jobs that rely on clean sands and clear water, and we'll fight every attempt to damage our coastal communities. Our local tourism industry, along with more than 42,000 businesses and over 500,000 commercial fishing families at BAPAC, will push back against this risky plan that threatens our coast and threatens our livelihoods. We have followed and fought this issue for many years, and we have commented at every opportunity we can. We've met with local leaders, we've met with members of Congress in Washington, D.C., and with the federal agency that oversees the development of this plan, which is BOEM, a couple of doors down. We are glad. Can you, okay. The mic's not working? I'm so sorry. We are glad to see the opposition to drilling grow. And we're happy for residents of Florida that were told by Secretary Zinke that they no longer have the water off their beaches up for sale. But Virginians and our beaches deserve that same protection. Governor Northam and my Congressman Scott Taylor, Senator Kane, Senator Warner, our local Virginia Beach City Council all agree Virginia should be removed from the federal drilling plan. Our coastal communities overwhelmingly agree that our shores should not be threatened by oil rigs, and we all need to tell the Trump administration and BOEM that it's time to protect our coast. Thank you.
And when people go to those restaurants, what do they look for? Good local seafood. I'm very happy to introduce Mike Osterling, who is the director of the Shellfish Growers of Virginia, to talk about how this would impact our local fisheries and shellfish growers. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Mike Osterling. I'm the Executive Director of the Shellfish Growers of Virginia. Shellfish Growers of Virginia is a trade association of clam and oyster farmers. Our mission is to promote our industry and do whatever we can do to continue to grow and provide you with some good seafood. Most people don't know that Virginia is the largest producer of cultured hard clams and cultured oysters on the East Coast. Our farmers annually produce well over $100 million worth of economic impact to the Commonwealth of Virginia. The shellfish culture industry and our wild fisheries depend on good, clean water. Without grow our product that you guys want. This is the basis for our opposition to the exploration and production drilling of offshore oil. It doesn't take an event the magnitude of the BP Deepwater Horizon to cause problems. And for us, it causes problems on many different levels. Our youngest animals, the larvae, the planktonic larvae, you look at them sideways and they die. The mid-sized animals can suffer lethal and sublethal impacts from oil spills that last for weeks, months, even years. And when you get to a market-sized animal, the word of an oil spill taints the market immediately, so that we cannot sell our product even if it is of the highest quality. So for us, water quality, water quality, water quality, we cannot take the risk that everything's going to be okay and we're not going to have a spill. That's the basis for our opposition.
Before we go to questions, I'd like to recognize a few other people who are with us today. John Knapp is the Virginia Director from Senator Kane's office, and would you like to say a few words on? Okay.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here today. Senator Kane is very disappointed that he couldn't be. When he found out when the date was, this event was rescheduled for, he was very disappointed. This is an area that he's become very passionate about, and he's asked me just to convey a couple simple things to you. First, he hears you, he has heard you, and he hears you. He supports you, and he opposes this plan to drill off the Virginia shore. The reasons have all been laid out, and so I won't go through them, but what he said in early January was, it's just not worth the risk. It's just not worth the risk. He's written to the Secretary of the Interior, he's communicated with the Secretary of Defense, he's asked for more public hearings because voices matter. The Secretary Zinke said to the Floridians when he removed them from the plan that he was doing it because local voices mattered. So congratulations to you today for being here. Senator Kane agrees. Local voices matter, and your voice here today is extremely important. Thanks.
I want to recognize a couple of other people. Diane Burke, hold up your hand. She is here from Virginia Beach. She is the Virginia Beach Hotel Association Director. And did Susan Barco make it? Susan. Susan Barco is with the Virginia Aquarium and will be available for any of the reporters if you have questions about wildlife impacts. She's an expert on the wildlife who depend upon a clean Atlantic Ocean. So, thank you, Susan, for being here also. So if all of the speakers could come back up, we'll take a few minutes, I think, for questions and answers. Are there any questions? Yes. And if you want to direct it to a particular person.
You touched on it some, but can you talk about the efforts that have been made to have a meeting like this in Hampton Roads, and has there been any response at all from the White House or the Trump administration?
Who wants to? Congressman, would you like, or Mr. Knapp?
I can't speak to why it is not in Hampton Roads, where people who will be directly impacted by an oil spill could come out and express their opinions, other than to suggest that perhaps the Trump administration is not really interested in hearing directly from the people, and they want to come an hour and 45 minutes away from the water part of my district inland to try to suggest that they're having a hearing. But I'm so happy to see folks from Hampton Roads here, and don't know if they did their research or not, but this is my home, and I'm here to tell them to keep the oil rigs off my coast.
Take a couple of more questions. Yes.
What kind of pushback will there be through the courts, and has that planning begun?
Anyone have? I don't know if we have a response to that at this time. Sorry. Any other questions? Yes.
Do any of you know if the Defense Department is officially opposed to this? I know that under the last leasing program, they had raised some concerns, but I thought I had seen that they were trying to work with the Interior Department about working around the oil rigs. Or
The most recent analytical study done on this to take a look at the areas off the coast that need to be protected for the training was in 2015. So I'm going to guess and say if this does proceed, then there would be a comparable effort. But what you saw when you looked at the charts of that study from 2015 was really small areas that the Defense Department had singled out as being non-obtrusive. It's probably nothing to do with where any oil and gas deposits might be found. The point is they're mutually incompatible. And you just compromise the training quality for the military, the various branches of the military, by pursuing this course of action. You can't have compromised training. You have got to train to certain standards. And again, if you can't do it off the coast of Virginia, they're obliged to go where they can.
Craig, what do you make of the claim, though, that there is compatibility in the Gulf of Mexico between drillers and the military training out there?
You got me on that one. I don't know.
What did he say? The question was, what do we know about the compatibility of drilling and military operations in the Gulf of Mexico? And we don't really.
And I know there's military training in the Gulf of Mexico. It's just I'm not familiar with the layout down there, so I can't give you an intelligent
I was going to say, when the Defense Department looks at that, they look at the nature of the training that occurs. And certainly what occurs off the coast of Virginia is not going to be the same as what occurs on the coast of Mexico. And that goes back to the nature of the assets that we have here in Virginia.
In addition to that, if you look at the map in the Gulf, you've got the entire southeastern region that is impactful to military operations, and it's really the western part that's not coded that way. So it's not that it doesn't have impact, but they've kind of held out some of these areas probably where it already was ongoing that they kind of held harmless.
So in other words, it's apples and oranges.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, well, thank you all for being here, and can we thank our speakers one more time? You all will make your voices loud and clear by submitting your comments to BOEM on the lease sale. So thank you.
thank you.